So, Kevin, what can be done after a trip has concluded to keep the experience of that trip front and center for the group so that it continues to have a lasting impact? What kind of measures have you taken with your groups to ensure that it doesn't just kind of fade away after you get back?
Yeah, so it's trickier than I personally always think it is, and the reason for that is um, just might sound strange, but these trips, once you've had this experience with a specific group of people, to those that were not on the trip, um, talking about the trip can feel exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go and we have this wonderful experience together, and we've grown and we've changed and we've laughed, and there's the funny story about somebody getting stuck in the bathroom or whatever. um, you know um, you're talking about this in September, right, in the youth room, and there are always people that couldn't go on the trip, um, and they're feeling like they missed out. And I have had students before, say that to me. Oh, I hate when you talk about this trip, and so it's really made me think that we have to be very careful about how we do it. So, I mentioned before that we do a sharing service that actually starts on the last night of the trip. So just like on the way down, we drive Saturday, Sunday. On the way back, we drive Saturday, Sunday. Um, we've stayed over at a bunch of places, sometimes just a church, but also at campgrounds for that last night, camped out, things like that. And the highlight of that is always a closing worship service. And what I do is, I print out a sheet with a call to worship, confession, scripture, sermon, drama, benediction, all the pieces, and then have everybody sign up for where they feel moved to lead. And so they get together and say, be creative as possible, and we do a worship service. Um, I love music. I hack on the guitar. And so, I try to make sure that there's a consistent thread of songs throughout the week. So by the time we get to the last service, they know these songs inside and out. We're doing them at that service. So what I'll do is, then when we get back, is we'll do some of those songs. That sharing service that we do in front of the congregation, we're not exactly creating it from scratch. We take a lot of pieces. I try and hold on to the call to worship that group created, and say, here it is, a month or so later. Do you have any changes you want to make? Do you think about this any differently? Um, we lead that, and we also lead the songs. And so kind of the spirit of thing also cultivates conversation about it among those who are on the trip. And then what we do, instead of kind of calling everybody together and saying, oh, hey, let's review what we did, in Chicago. Let's review what we did in West Virginia. We go and we do other things. So we go and do consistent soup kitchens at Emma Care in Hartford, or South Park Inn in Hartford. We do Rebuilding Together, which is a Saturday of refurbishing a home in Hartford. And we try to do some mission projects here and there. We always go Christmas caroling to shut-ins and things like that, and just which is very different from a mission trip, but still doing something where you're giving to others. And I find that connection for me, I think is enough. The other thing that we do, besides just mission stuff, we try to have conversations. So we've in the spring, and actually the winter and early spring, we always try to dive a little deeper. So I always view the fall as being the icebreaker time, and the the conversations about friendship time and family time. Let's talk about being a student, being a kid, being a teenager. But in the winter is when we'll talk about, we'll bring some of those topics back, um, that came up on some of those trips, right? Topics like racism, and poverty, all kinds of topics that you might find on a trip. So I do find that these trips are coming up. Some of the themes that we learned about on these trips are coming up, but we don't really talk about them specifically, for the simple reason that I do find it to be hard to weave in for those that weren't on the trips themselves.
Yeah, it's actually a great lesson in hospitality there, right? Because you are being really welcoming and hospitable of the rest of your group that was not able to go on the trip for whatever reason. it's an eye towards inclusivity and an eye towards how to incorporate this experience into the whole of your youth group year, not just this one segmented time with this one smaller group of people.